In Parashat Vayira, we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu tests Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom with the biggest test that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ever tested anyone. With the test of what? The test of Akedat Yitzchak, the sacrificing of Yitzchak. So the big question that we can find about this entire story that maybe could bring us to a much deeper understanding of many things in our Torah. And the question is not even about the test itself. The question is what occurs and what happens right after the test. So we know that the test of Akedat Yitzchak came from the Malachim, where the Midrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was approached by the Malachim, and the Malachim tried to get an understanding where Avraham Avinu Alav Hashem's dedication is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham, take your son, your only son, that from him I promise you that you will build a nation, and sacrifice him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts Avraham in the biggest test possible. To take his only son and to bring him to a place of doing the Shechita himself. But there's something even bigger that we can ask upon this. Right after Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom passed the test, shows his dedication, shows his commitment, brings his son to a place of sacrificing him, we see that the Torah says that immediately afterwards, the Satan goes to the house, the tent of Sarah, and tells Sarah what happened, that Yitzchak is no longer alive. And immediately afterwards, Sarah passes away. It's not enough that HaKadosh Baruch Hu already tested Avraham by making him sacrifice his only loved son, and now he takes his wife away from him. Where is the understanding and where is the logic of right after finishing the test of Akedat Yitzchak, putting upon Avraham this big punishment, you could even call it? Now even more so, Zohar HaKadosh says that right after the Akedah, Avraham Avinu Alav Hashem went to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am not leaving this place until you make a promise for me. What is the promise? The promise was that I will not be tested with one more test. Avraham Avinu Alav Hashem was tired. He said, you tested me already with 10 tests. Lech Lecha, Paro, Avimelech, the famines, whatever it was, enough. I don't want any more tests. So until you make a swear to me in a covenant that this will be the last test that I have, I'm not going to leave. And Chazal say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed. Where some even Mefashim say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom, you know, I have more tests for you, but because you are being persistent and you are not going to leave until you get a promise from me, I'm going to transfer these tests to Eov, where Eov took all the burden, all the remaining tests that Avraham Avinu Alav Hashem was supposed to receive. So right after that, Akedah, Avraham was promised a good life, essentially, an end to all these tests. So how come right after the Akedah, the biggest test that Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom needed to do, and after HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore to him that he won't give him another test, he takes Sarah's neshama, he takes his wife, and she passes away. Where is the logic in all this? So in order to understand that, this we have to understand something that existed, first of all, within the neshamot of Avraham and within the neshamot of Sarah. We know the Zohar HaKadosh says that the neshama of Avraham and the neshama of Sarah, they were one neshama. Or in other words, zivug amiti. What does zivug amiti mean? Zivug amiti is when one neshama descends from Olamot HaElohim, when one neshama comes out of Gan Eden, and when it reaches the last gate of Olamot HaElohim, of the worlds above, which is Leven and Tzafir, there are two malachim that they call like the splitters. They're the splitters and they are the connectors. What does that mean? It means that whenever a whole neshama comes out from Gan Eden, they split the neshama, feminine and masculine. And then when it leaves the upper world and goes down to our world, they split to two bodies, a feminine body and a masculine body, meaning a man and a woman. Also, when they come up, when the Shemot ascend, when the masculine part come and the feminine part come, meaning when a couple, but where Zivug Amiti pass away, they stick them back and they send them back to Gan Eden as like a couple. Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom and Sarah, they were Zivug Amiti. They were the same neshama that was split in two. They both came from the same source. Knowing this, it answers a big question about Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom's efficacy, you can call it. In what manner? You see, throughout the years, Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom calls his wife, what?
Beautiful.
His sister. Achoti. He comes to Avraham, tells her, she's my sister. He comes to Mechila to Paro, she's my sister. He comes to Avimelech, she's my sister. So what is this concept of mentioning that she's a sister? How is Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom being such a tzaddik lying to all these people? How is this possible? So according to this, we can understand that Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom was actually not lying at all. Where Avraham's neshama and Sarah's neshama came from the same source, meaning from the same parent, and if they both came from the same parent and they are the same neshama, they are like one entity, they both came from the same place, same parent. In our terms, what would they be one for the other? Siblings, brother and sister. They are two halves. They're two entities that came out of one source, out of one father and mother. So they're like siblings. So we see this concept of how the neshamot were built. Zohar HaKadosh says that Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom's neshama, Sarah Avinu Alav Shalom's neshama, was a neshama that, as we know, was not capable of bringing children. Where we say that Sarah was Akara. She was barren. Chazal explained that not only that she was physically barren, meaning she was physically incapable of bringing a child, but even on a spiritual level, she couldn't bring children. What does that mean? From a spiritual level, her neshama wasn't a neshama that was capable of bringing down an additional neshama. Where bringing down neshamot of her own was not something that her neshama had the capability of doing so. So, how did she have a child named Yitzchak? So Zohar HaKadosh says something very, very simple. When Sarah prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring a child, there was some sort of agreement that Zohar HaKadosh says that needed to happen in order for her to essentially bring a kid. Because she didn't have the ability to bring down a new neshama from Olamot Elyonim. So what did she do? The Zohar HaKadosh says that she took a piece of her own neshama, she took a piece of her own existence and branched it off and gave it to Yitzchak. Meaning that Yitzchak's neshama was leaning on whose neshama? Leaning on Sarah's. Where Yitzchak's neshama was essentially whose neshama? Sarah's neshama.
But also Abraham.
Rega. Leaning on Sarah's neshama. As a result of that, Zohar HaKadosh is something very simple. We see in places in the Torah where there is a neshama that leans one on the other, they lean in all aspects. So we can look at, for example, the Zohar that talks about the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So it says that when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was passing away, he said, "Bring me Rabbi Yitzchak." Why Rabbi Yitzchak? So they laid down, the Zohar HaKadosh says, because I gave him my neshama. What does that mean, I gave him my neshama? When Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was about to pass away, he knew that the moment that he would pass away, he will have to take with him Rabbi Yitzchak. Why so? 18 years previously, there was a big tzaddik named Rabbi Yitzchak that passed away, and when he got to Shamayim, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai fought for him to extend his life, and the deal was that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai became the Arev. He became like the Arev, the co-signer, you can call it, the man that is a guarantee on that neshama. Or in other words, he leaned his neshama to give life to Rabbi Yitzchak. The moment that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's neshama was pulled, and he left this world, who left with him? Rabbi Yitzchak. Based off this, we can understand the applications of what happens when a person leans his neshama to somebody else. At the time of the Akedah, what happened? According to Arizal, Yitzchak was actually sacrificed. That he did complete shechita, and Arizal even said he was burnt. The moment that Yitzchak's neshama was taken and pulled out of this world, as immediate reaction, what got pulled with it? Sarah Imenu Alaha Shalom. That it's not that the Satan was given permission to go to Sarah and to pinch her and to take her neshama for no reason. It was as a result of Yitzchak's neshama leaving this world, Sarah needed to be pulled. Because they were leaning one on the other. And if one was pulled early, the other one would follow. So the question is, if Sarah Imenu Alaha Shalom's neshama was the source of Yitzchak's life, and that's how Yitzchak derived the ability to exist in this world, after when Sarah passed away, which was not a test or punishment, it was just a reaction of what Avraham did by doing the Akedah to Yitzchak. How did Yitzchak come back to life?
Wow.
How did he come back to life? His neshama was Sarah's. Sarah's no longer alive. How did Yitzchak suddenly derive life? So there's a pasuk in the Torah. Always, we had questions about it. Right after the Akedah, Yitzchak looks at Avraham. He says, Avraham, my father, you are chesed. You are a man of chesed. How are you able and how are you capable of doing such an act of deen? How are you capable of doing such an act that would require so much strength and judgment? So the answer of Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom is incredible. What does he answer? He answers, Vayomer hineni beni. What does Avraham tell Yitzchak? Tell Yitzchak, no, my son. Me from my core, I am chesed. I am kindness. But today I am you. Hineni beni. Why I am you? Referring to the concept that Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom didn't wear his attribute of chesed that day, but he wore the attribute of chesed of who? Of Yitzchak. Which is, Yitzchak is what?
Sarah.
Gvura. It's strength. Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom told Yitzchak what? Today, at the Akedah, in this moment of the sacrifice, me and you, we are one. We are one entity. Why? Because now Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom knew, in order for Yitzchak to be alive, whose neshama is going to need to lean?
Sarah.
A new neshama. So what did Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom do? He leaned his own neshama. Where he gave a piece of his own neshama, like what Sarah did to bring Yitzchak from the first place, but this time he gave it to Yitzchak. Where Yitzchak and Avraham were no longer two neshamot, but they were what? They were one neshama leaning on one another. And that's why we say in a few parashot, Ele toldot Avraham, Avraham olid et Yitzchak. This is the life of Avraham. Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. Since when do we talk about a man that a man gave birth to another man? Usually you say a man was the father of, or you say about a woman and then a woman gave birth to somebody. Why Avraham olid et Yitzchak? Why? Because Avraham Avinu Hashem gave a new life and a new tolada, a new, you could call it like birth of a neshama, the same way Sarah Imenu Alaha Shalom did. That at the time of the Akedah, Yitzchak did not have a neshama to live. He didn't have a source of life to keep him alive. So Avraham Avinu Alaha Shalom needed to lean his. And once he leaned his, he was considered to be not like only his father, but he was considered to be like his father and his mother. And that explains so many questions and about the passing of Sarah Imenu Alaha Shalom not being a separate test, but being a direct reaction and a direct repercussion of what happened in the moment when Avraham Avinu Alaha Shalom sacrificed Yitzchak.
And Avraham knew that. That's why he first said, I am you,
Yitzchak. I am you, Yitzchak. He said, today I am no longer chesed. I am no longer sidra de chesed, the essence of chesed. Because chesed cannot do what I'm about to do, which is bringing my son as a sacrifice. I need to be you, meaning he tied himself with Yitzchak. And once he tied himself with Yitzchak, Yitzchak was able to derive life as well. So this or that.
And that's why he was able to go up and then come back down, because he was still relying on Abraham.
He had Avraham. He had Avraham.
Wow.